Well, it's a business that my husband and I started together, and we've been unofficially doing this for about 6 years. Officially, the business has been launched in the public domain for about 3, but it was really a passion of my husband's. We both come up from a creative background. We're both in branding. We do design and consulting, but we always have loved doing things with our hands. I love to illustrate, and he's always loved to craft things with his hands. He used to work with leather quite a lot. And we decided one day, shortly after being married actually, that we'd really like to create something, a product that we can sell ourselves. And he has always had a talent for working with leather. And it was just kind of a hobby, and we used it to give to friends as gifts. So we kind of put 2 and 2 together and thought, well, why don't we do something with this, you know?
I'd have said my wife and I are both the creative directors, although underneath that we obviously do many different things as well. So we do the prototyping, we'll do the design for that, we will do the accounts, we'll think about the actual price of the product, how long it takes to make, that sort of thing. From that, we have full control over the full production line. So we are very detail orientated when it comes to material, time, and again that gives us a good idea in terms of how to price things as well. We can make small incremental changes because we have full control over the full process.
In the world of mass production, it is not easy to sell handcrafted products. Honesty, leather, natural vegetable tanning and simple design make Made by Native stand out.
This is part of, again, the reason why we chose vegetable tan leather is part of my personal ethos. I really do take the time and effort to recycle, to use less packaging or products myself on a day-to-day basis, so that's a general idea. But I think it's part of a larger global movement, like a renaissance, as you might say, where people are wanting to know exactly where their coffee comes from, or their cheeses, or any kind of food produce, or anything like that. I think in the grand scheme of things, most people are gravitating towards that idea. They want to know where it's been sourced from, who's picked it, full transparency on how much wages those people are being paid. So I think there's a huge global shift, and we'd like to be part of that. Again, it's happening here maybe a little bit later on in Europe, but I think Middle East and Asia, it's going to have this huge knock-on effect, and everyone's going to be working in this cycle of a full transparent spectrum of materials and how they're processed and everything.
That's what really has made it successful, is that we share a very common vision. I am critical of, let's say, quality control. So in that sense, I do give a lot of very honest feedback. Sometimes it could be a little bit upsetting, you know, if he's worked on something for a very long time and I say, I'm not sure it's working. But to be honest, we never really argue about it because we want it to be the best. So he might not see something because he's so close to the design, he's so close to it. Sometimes you do need somebody else to look at something to find little faults maybe, but I think that's what makes our product so great, is because we really pay so much attention to the detail, and I think it's actually good that we sometimes have different opinions on things, because it only makes it better.
Running a business with your partner is difficult, so my wife and I, we do obviously have disagreements. It's not sort of strong arguments, but we do have disagreements. I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but we're both creatives, so we're both designers, and I think that's where we'd obviously have the most disagreements with things because of that reason. But having said that, what is nice, I think it's the best balance you can have, if possible, is in a company, regardless of the size, to have a nice balance of male and female, because everyone has different perspective on things. I've actually designed some really quite beautiful ladies' bags, and my wife has said, that's amazing, but with masculine things, maybe my wife has a better take on it than I do. So it's quite nice to have those roles sort of swapped. Again, there's slight disagreements that we have with things, but it's only part of the process. And we're quite good, actually. I mean, we do discuss a lot of things in our own personal time, even if it's in the middle of the night. We've got our notebooks and we write a few things down, we'll discuss it before we go to bed. There's nothing wrong with doing that, but we are quite good at, you know, just saying one day a week, we just don't talk about work or anything, and it's nice to switch off and that's it. Or we're quite good with even saying to each other, don't talk to me about work, I'm relaxing. So there's pros and cons. The massive positive is you can always be thinking about it, and as a creative, you're always thinking about stuff. You can't be creative from 9 to 5 and switch off and that's it. It doesn't work like that. So I think if you called your colleague at 11 o'clock at night and said I had a great idea, that's infringing on someone's personal time. But at least with your wife or your husband, at least you can do that without upsetting someone.
I think obviously we have to have a distinction between our personal lives and business, but when we know we're talking about business, we have to be honest. And if it's hurtful, then we can acknowledge that it's hurtful. You know, that he could say, God, that was really harsh, or I can say, oh, that's really, you know, I'm really upset that this has happened. But you know, if you're serious about working together, then I think you need to be a bit strong, because it's not easy. Feelings do get hurt, and you know, you're working late into the night and you're tired. But you also have to understand that your marriage is one thing and your partnership is one thing and the business is something else. If the business fails, that's fine. You know, what matters is that your marriage is, or your partnership is what's the most important.
We always try and use, very simply, the best tried and tested methods and techniques. So if that involves using machinery, we're open to doing that. And again, to make sure we have very durable products and products that are made with accuracy, we would use machines as well. However, there's some things that you can't replicate with machines, so we'd always have a balance. So when we do expand, that's one thing I need to be consciously aware of, about making the products durable and making them the best as possibly they can. Sometimes with machines, there is obviously a better accuracy level, which is where we probably would use them, but there's some things that we will always do by hand as well. The general idea is I came full round spectrum, because I'm the sort of person where I'm very conscious of what I consume. I'm very careful where I buy things from. I always ask a lot of questions. I try not to use plastic bags, for example. Realistically, everyone does now and then. It's difficult, but you want to know that disposed of properly, all of these sort of things. But then I came full circle round in terms of, you know, people that buy an iPad and say, oh, it's fantastic using this because it saves paper. But it's an illogical argument, because paper lasts for hundreds of years, and then when it has done, it just naturally disintegrates into the ground. And it's the same with an iPad. You know, people realistically just use them for about 3 or 4 years and chuck them in the bin. But all of the components in there, they're all mined out of Africa by God knows what kind of labour, and then no one even reuses them again. It's just thrown away. And that's where I came full cycle round back to leather. I just thought it's a natural material. We've been using it for thousands of years. If it's tandem processed correctly, without using any chemicals, it can last for hundreds of years. And it can, a lot of these old manuscript books and Bibles that they've bound in, I think they're called Gutenberg books in Germany, they last for about 300 years. And again, they just naturally perish, disintegrate with no chemicals going back into the ground, and that's why I thought it's the best material to use, and it's the best material to work with as well.
In the age of Pinterest now, it's very easy to get completely distracted by what's trendy and what's online and what So I try as much as possible not to get influenced by what's trendy. And I try to take influence from other things like nature and culture, to be outside as much as possible and not just be, behind a computer looking at what's the latest model and what's the latest trend.